My CEO asked me to be her date to her ex's wedding on a dead quiet Friday night in the office break room. That one question changed everything. It was almost 8 p.m. at Hartwell Technologies. The open floor was mostly dark. Most people had gone home hours ago. I sat alone at the break room table with my laptop, staring at quarterly reports and drinking cold coffee. As a senior analyst, I told myself this kind of overtime meant I was important. Mostly, it just meant I was tired. I was rubbing my eyes when a voice said, "Excuse me, do you have a minute?" I jumped and spun around. Ms. Brennan stood in the doorway. Claire Brennan, CEO, the woman who ran the whole company. I'd seen her give speeches and lead brutal meetings, but we had never been alone in the same room like this. I sat up straighter so fast my chair squeaked. "Of course, Ms. Brennan. What can I do for you?" She stepped inside and closed the door behind her. The little click made my stomach drop. My mind started racing through every report I had filed in the last month. Had I missed something? Was I about to be fired in the break room? "This is going to sound completely inappropriate," she said quietly, "and I'm apologizing in advance." Quote, "Okay," I said, even though nothing felt okay. She didn't sit. She stood near the counter, one hand resting on the back of a chair. Her charcoal blazer was perfect. Her auburn hair was twisted up like always, but her shoulders weren't as straight, and she looked more like a person at the end of a long day than an untouchable CEO. "My ex-fiancé is getting married in 3 weeks," she said. That was not anywhere on the list of things I expected to come out of her mouth. "I was invited," she went on, eyes on the floor. "I know I should decline. That would be the mature choice. But I can't stop thinking that I need to go. For closure. Or pride. I don't even know." I nodded slowly, still confused why I was part of this conversation at all. "The problem is," she said, "if I show up alone, I look pathetic." She said the word bluntly, like she was used to stabbing herself with the truth before anyone else could. "Everyone from our circle will be there. His family, my old friends, people who knew us when we were engaged. They'll look at me and think, of course she's still single. Of course he found someone better." When she finally looked up, I saw something I had never seen in her eyes. Fear. Real, human fear. "So I need to ask you something." She said something unprofessional, maybe insane. My grip tightened on my coffee mug. "Okay," I said. She took a breath like she was stepping off a ledge. "Will you be my date to my ex's wedding?" Silence fell heavy between us. I stared at her, waiting for some sign. This was a joke. There was none. Just her, watching me with tired, hopeful eyes. "You're serious?" I asked. "Yes." Every policy in the employee handbook flashed through my head. Power imbalance. HR problems. Gossip. She was my boss. I should have said no on instinct. Instead, I heard myself ask, "Why me?" "You're professional," she said. "You do your job. You don't gossip. You don't flirt with people to get ahead. You're one of the few people I trust not to turn this into office drama." She hesitated, then added, "I'll pay you for your time. $5,000 for one afternoon. You just have to show up, stay by my side, and help me get through it without falling apart. $5,000. That was more than a month of my salary. In my head, I saw debt disappearing, my car finally getting fixed, a little savings account starting to exist. It was a crazy amount of money for playing pretend for a few hours. But something about taking her money for this felt wrong. Like I'd be selling a part of myself. "I don't want your money," I said. Her brows pulled together. "You don't." "I'll do it under one condition," I said. "What condition?" "You tell me the real reason you're going." "I told you," she said. "Closure. Closure is what people say when they don't want to say what they're really feeling." I said, "So what is it actually?" For a second, I saw the CEO mask slide back into place. She could shut me down, remind me who she was, walk out, and this would never be spoken of again. Instead, she let out a breath and the mask cracked. "I want him to see that I'm okay," she said softly. "That leaving me didn't break me, even though it did, more than I want to admit." She looked away, jaw tight. I want to walk in there with someone who makes it look like I moved on, like I'm happy, like his decision didn't ruin my life. Her voice dropped on the last question. Is that pathetic? No, I said. It's human. She looked back at me like she was seeing me for the first time. We all want to seem okay, I added, especially in front of the people who hurt us. Quote, we stood there in a silence that felt heavier than the entire office building. So she asked finally, you'll do it. I thought about the risk, the gossip, HR, all the ways this could go wrong. Yeah, I said I'll do it. She exhaled, shoulders dropping a little. Thank you. We should exchange numbers. I'll text you the details. The date, the location, who will be there. We'll need a story about how we met. I gave her my number. She typed it in with hands that were not quite steady. If you change your mind, she said as she opened the door, I'll understand. I won't, I said. She nodded and left, closing the door softly behind her. I sat there alone for a long time, staring at my dim laptop screen. The numbers on it might as well have been another language. What had I just agreed to? 3 days later, my phone buzzed while I was in the cereal aisle at the grocery store. Unknown number, this is Claire Brennan. Can we meet tomorrow to discuss details? Coffee at 10 a.m., Riverside Cafe on 4th. Seeing her first name on my screen made everything feel different. Less like work, more like something else I didn't want to name yet. I typed back one word, sure. At the time, I thought I was just saying yes to a strange favor for my boss. I didn't know I was also saying yes to the night I'd sit and listen to her ex's wedding vows, with her hand gripping mine like I was the only thing holding her together. Riverside Cafe was the kind of place where time felt slower. Old brick walls, wooden chairs that didn't match, a chalkboard menu behind the counter. The air smelled like fresh coffee and cinnamon. I got there 10 minutes early and picked a small table in the back. My palms were sweating. This was still my CEO. Fake date or not, it felt like a performance I had not rehearsed for. At exactly 10 a.m., the door opened and she walked in. Claire was not in her usual suit. She wore jeans, ankle boots, and a soft blue sweater. Her hair was down around her shoulders. For a second, I barely recognized her. She looked younger, more relaxed, almost like a different person. She saw me and gave a small nod. No boardroom smile. Just a tired, honest one. Thank you for coming, she said as she sat down. I wasn't sure if you would. I said I would, I replied. People say a lot of things, she said, and there was no bitterness in it, just experience. She set a slim leather folder on the table. It looked like something she would bring to a budget meeting. Somehow that made this feel even stranger. The wedding is 3 weeks from Saturday, she said, Morrison Gardens. The botanical venue downtown. Ceremony at 4. Reception after. Black tie optional. I nodded and tried to look calm while my brain calculated the cost of renting a decent suit. She slid a printed page toward me. These are the people who will be there. His family, old friends, business contacts, a few mutual acquaintances who know me a little too well. I looked at the list. Names, a few notes. I did not recognize anyone, but I could feel the weight they carried for her. His name is Trevor. She added Trevor Lane. We were together for 5 years. Engaged for 18 months. Her voice was smooth and flat, like she had said that sentence so many times it became a script. He is marrying Amanda. She said she comes from money. Her family owns half the buildings downtown. She is very kind and very smart, which makes it annoyingly hard to hate her. The corner of my mouth twitched. Sounds like a fun crowd. She huffed once. It was not quite a laugh, but it tried. We need a story, she said about us. Quote, us, I repeated, because the word hit different when it meant me and her. How we met, how long we have been together, what we like about each other, she said. These people will ask questions. They love to look for cracks. Okay, I said, what do you want our story to be? She looked at me carefully. We met 8 months ago at the company retreat. The leadership one at the resort outside the city. I was actually there. I said I know, she replied. You asked a question during my presentation about market share. That is how I remembered your name. I blinked. You remembered that. I remember a lot of things, she said. We will use it. We talked during a break. You noticed that I was remembering everyone's names in the room, even people not on the leadership track. You asked if it was strategy or if I actually cared. What did you answer? I asked both. She said, because that is the truth. We started building the lie. Our fake first date was at a small Italian restaurant. We picked one we both actually knew. We decided I brought her tulips because they are her favorite. She claimed we realized we had similar ideas about work, about life, about people. The more we talked, the less it felt like a lie and more like a version of us that could have been real. What do I call you at the wedding? I asked. I cannot call you, Miss Brennan, if I am supposed to be your boyfriend. She froze for half a second. Claire, she said. You call me Claire. Claire, I repeated. The name felt strange in my mouth, intimate, wrong, and right at the same time. Is that weird? She asked. A little, I said. But so is all of this. For the first time since I met her, she almost smiled in a way that reached her eyes. It faded fast, but I saw it. She picked up her coffee and then set it back down without taking a sip. Everyone there will know I am your boss, she said. Trevor knows I run Hartwell. His friends know. They will see you and do the math. So they will think this is inappropriate. I said that you used your position. That I said yes because I wanted something. Exactly, she said, jaw tight. I hate that. I hate how fast people are ready to believe the worst version of a woman in power. So what do we do? I asked. We show them two people who respect each other, she said. Two people who actually enjoy being together. That part does not have to be fake. Quote. She held my gaze as she said it. I felt my chest tighten. We barely know each other, I said, just to keep my head clear. Then we fix that, she replied. We met again 4 days later. Dinner at a quiet Italian restaurant. Then the next week at a bookstore. Then another coffee shop. Always in places where we could talk without people from the office watching. We talked about surface things at first. Work, schedules, board members, reports. Then other things slipped in. Her childhood in a small town in Ohio. How she worked 3 jobs in college. The first time she pitched an idea to a room full of men in suits who looked at her like she was lost. My early jobs, my cheap apartment, my dream of maybe starting my own firm one day. The girlfriend who left me 3 years ago and got married to someone else 8 months later. How I found out on social media and never had the guts to go near that wedding. I am sorry, she said when I told her that. It is fine. I lied. Why did you not go? She asked. Because I did not want to see her happy without me. I said I did not want to know that she actually moved on. I thought if I did not go, it would hurt less. Did it? She asked. No. I said, I think it made it worse. It felt like a wound that never closed. She was quiet for a long moment. So you are doing this with me because you regret not going to hers, she said. I looked at her across the table. Candlelight caught in her hair, in the tired lines at the corner of her eyes. I am doing this because running from pain does not make it smaller, I said. It just lets it chase you longer. You should not have to carry that. Her eyes shone for a second, and she blinked fast. That is the nicest thing anyone has said to me in a long time, she said softly. Days turned into weeks. Saying her name got easier. Claire in texts, Claire in my head. By the third meeting, it did not feel wrong anymore. One night at dinner, she asked, at the wedding, how affectionate are we talking about? I almost choked on my water. What do you mean? Hand-holding, she said, arm around my waist. Kissing. I do not want to surprise you on the spot. We do what feels natural, I said. If we force it, people will see it. I am not very good at physical affection, she said, eyes on her plate. Trevor always said I was cold. Too focused on work. Maybe he wanted you to be someone you are not, I said. She looked up, startled. You say that like you know. Quote, I do. I said my ex wanted me to be less serious, less careful. She said I was boring. I spent months trying to be someone else. It just made us both miserable. She watched me for a moment like she was taking notes, but this time it felt personal, not professional. A week before the wedding, my phone lit up at midnight. Claire, I cannot sleep. I keep thinking about seeing him. Me, you do not have to go. You can still change your mind. Her reply came so fast it had to already be typed. Claire, no, I need to do this. I just need to know you will be there. I stared at the screen and typed one word. Me. Always. There was a pause then. Claire, thank you for everything. I lay in the dark after that, phone on my chest, wondering when helping my boss had turned into wanting to protect her. The day of the wedding came bright and clear. My suit felt stiff but looked good enough. I drove to her apartment, nerves buzzing under my skin. She opened the door, and the words in my head fell apart. Her dress was a deep shade of green that made her eyes look brighter. Simple lines, nothing flashy, but it fit her like it was made for her. Her hair was swept back on one side, loose on the other. You clean up well, she said, eyes moving over my suit. Her voice was calm, but I saw the way her fingers tightened on her clutch. So do you, I said. Are you ready? No, she said honestly, but I am going anyway. In the car, she watched the city slide past the window for a long time before speaking. The last time I saw him, she said, I was begging him to stay. That is not something I am proud of. You were hurt. I said I told him I would work less. I would be softer. I would change whatever he needed. He looked at me like I was a stranger. She gave a small, humorless laugh. That is the part that still stings, she said. Not that he left. That he looked at me like I was someone he had already decided to forget. I reached over and squeezed her hand once on the console, his loss. I said, that is the story we are telling today. She did not pull her hand away. We are happy, she said. That is what they will see. We are happy, I repeated. I was not sure if we were, but I knew I wanted it to be true. We pulled into the parking lot at Morrison Gardens with 20 minutes to spare. From the outside, the place looked like something out of a movie. Stone arches, climbing vines, rows of white chairs already set up under an arch covered in flowers. Claire stared out the windshield. Once we walk in there, people will talk, she said. They will whisper. They will judge. Then we give them something real to look at, I said. Two people who are not ashamed to stand together. She closed her eyes for a second, then opened them and nodded. Okay, she said. We stepped out of the car and walked toward the entrance, my hand light on the small of her back. I could feel her taking a breath with every step. The woman who ran my company was about to walk into the wedding of the man who broke her heart. And I was the one holding her hand. The air inside Morrison Gardens felt warmer than outside. Soft music played from somewhere hidden. White chairs lined up in neat rows faced a floral arch at the front. It was pretty in that perfect, expensive way that feels like a magazine spread. People turned as soon as we walked in. I felt the weight of a dozen curious glances. Some were quick and polite, some not subtle at all. Claire's back straightened under my hand, her chin lifting just a touch. Showtime, she murmured. A woman in a deep purple dress walked toward us like she was on a mission. Blonde hair in a neat twist, sharp eyes that flicked from Claire to me and back again. Claire, she said, you actually came. Jessica, Claire replied, voice smooth. Good to see you. And you brought. Jessica looked me up and down. Someone, Claire slid her hand into mine. The move was simple, but I felt her fingers tighten like she was hanging on. This is my boyfriend, she said. We've been together about 8 months. Jessica's eyebrows shot up. 8 months? You've been holding out on us. We kept it quiet, Claire said. Work complications. You know how it is. He works for you, Jessica asked, and this time there was no effort to hide the judgment. I smiled like I had not noticed. We met at a company retreat, I said calmly, outside of work mode. The work connection came later. Jessica let out a little sound that was almost a scoff. "Well, you look good, Claire," she said finally, very composed. "I'm doing well," Claire said. "Thank you." Jessica's gaze lingered 1 second longer, then she drifted away to talk to someone else, leaving the faint scent of expensive perfume and curiosity behind her. We found 2 seats in the middle section. Not front row, not back. Safe, neutral territory. Claire sat down and kept hold of my hand. Her grip was firmer now, almost painful, but I didn't let go. "You okay?" I asked quietly. "Ask me in an hour," she said. People settled. A murmur went through the crowd as the music shifted. The officiant took his place under the arch. A line of bridesmaids and groomsmen filed in. Then Trevor walked out. I had seen his photo once when Claire was giving me background. In person, he looked exactly how I expected a successful finance guy at a fancy wedding to look. Perfect tux. Confident smile. The kind of face that seems built for LinkedIn. Claire's whole body went still. "You good?" I whispered. "I'm fine," she said, but her eyes did not leave him. The music changed again. Everyone stood. Amanda appeared at the end of the aisle. If life were scripted, she would have looked cruel or fake. She didn't. She was beautiful in a clean, simple dress. Dark hair pinned back. She smiled at Trevor with the kind of open, glowing happiness you can't buy. Beside me, Claire's hand clamped tighter around mine. I leaned in. "Remember," I said, "you're not here alone." Quote. She didn't answer, but I felt her shoulders ease just a fraction. The ceremony moved in that slow, careful way weddings do. Welcome readings, a joke or two to relax the guests. I heard none of it clearly. I was too focused on the tiny changes in Claire's face. Then it was vow time. Trevor went first. He talked about how he knew from their first real conversation that Amanda was the one. He talked about partnership, how love is choosing someone every day, how she made him a better man, the usual words, but said with real emotion. I felt Claire flinch at one line about past relationships that weren't right. She didn't move, but something in her eyes shuddered. My thumb brushed over her knuckles. She held her breath all the way through his speech. Then Amanda spoke. She talked about his kindness, his drive, how he supported her causes. She mentioned that he'd told her about a time when he thought his life was already planned with someone else, and how grateful she was that things had changed and brought him to her instead. Claire's jaw clenched. Her eyes stayed on the couple, but her breathing turned shallow. "You can look away," I whispered. "I don't want to," she said, so quiet I barely heard her. "I need to see all of it." Quote. They exchanged rings. They kissed. People clapped. Someone behind us whistled. The usual. Claire sat down slowly when everyone else did, like she was moving through water. "How bad was it?" I asked under the noise. "Less than I imagined," she said. "More than I wanted." We followed the crowd to the reception area, a huge glass greenhouse filled with round tables, string lights, and more flowers than I'd seen in my entire life. A band tuned up in the corner. We found our table. Several people looked vaguely familiar from the list Claire had given me. A few knew her well. They smiled and asked casual questions about us. How we met, how long we'd been together, what we liked doing on weekends. We slipped into our rehearsed answers. Italian restaurant first date. Walks in the park. Late nights talking about books and business and music. It should have felt fake. It didn't. We actually had done most of that in the last few weeks. One of the guys at the table, slim with glasses and a too expensive watch, leaned forward at one point. "So you work for her?" he asked me. "Yes," I said. "And dating your CEO isn't strange?" he asked. He said it like he was trying to sound curious, but there was a sticky layer of judgment on the word. I shrugged. "We met as people before we ever thought about titles." I said, "We just didn't let the titles stop us afterwards." Claire shot me a quick look, and something softened in her expression. Dinner came and went. Speeches started. Friends from college told stories about Trevor and Amanda. Parents teared up. People laughed. Glasses clinked. At some point, the band shifted into a slow song, and the dance floor opened to everyone. Dance with me, I said. Claire glanced at the crowded floor. I don't really. This is part of the show, I said lightly. Also, I just want to. Come on. I stood and held out my hand. After a heartbeat, she took it. On the dance floor, with people moving all around us, she felt smaller in my arms than she did in a boardroom. Lighter somehow. Human. We swayed in the soft lights, the music wrapping around us. How are you really doing? I asked. She was quiet for a few beats. Honestly, better than I expected, she said. Watching him marry someone else hurts less than I thought it would. Why do you think that is? I asked. She tipped her head back enough to look up at me. Because I'm realizing I never loved him the way I told myself I did. She said I loved the plan, the image, the safety, not the person. That's a big thing to admit, I said. It feels like pulling a splinter. She replied, small, but everything around it stops aching as much. She rested her forehead briefly against my shoulder. The move felt so natural that for a moment I forgot anyone else existed. Thank you, she said, quietly, for being here. For saying yes. For not making me feel stupid, for needing this. You're not stupid. I said, you're brave. There's a difference. We stayed out for 2 more songs. When we finally went back to the table, Trevor and Amanda were making their way around the room, stopping at each table to say hello. My stomach tightened. Claire's shoulders lifted like armor. When they reached us, Trevor's polite host's smile faltered for half a second when he saw Claire. He said, I'm glad you could make it. Congratulations, Claire replied. Her voice was even, you both look happy. We are, Amanda said, and she looked like she meant it. She turned to me, and, who's this? This is my boyfriend, Claire said before I could answer. We've been together for, 8 months now. About that, I said, meeting Trevor's eyes without flinching. Nice to meet you. Beautiful ceremony. Quote, Thank you, he said. His gaze flicked between us, reading the closeness, the way our hands rested together. Some emotion I couldn't name passed over his face and was gone. Amanda smiled warmly. I'm really glad you're doing well, Claire. She said, Trevor has always said you're one of the smartest people he's ever known. That was kind of him. Claire said, I'm glad things worked out for you both. They moved on, pulled away by the next group of guests waiting to congratulate them. As soon as they were out of earshot, Claire let out a long breath she'd clearly been holding. That was surreal. She said, you handled it. I said, for the first time since the breakup, she said slowly. I don't feel like I lost something. What do you feel like? I asked. She looked at me then. Really looked at me. The noise of the room faded in the background. I feel like I dodged a life that wasn't for me, she said, and somehow walked straight into something better without realizing it. My heart stumbled a little at that. She hesitated, then asked, Would you think I'm insane if I said I'm actually enjoying tonight? At your ex's wedding, I said. She gave a small smile. With you, she corrected. And yes, also at my ex's wedding, I don't think you're insane. I said, I think you're allowed to enjoy being with someone who actually shows up for you. She watched me for a long moment, indecision clear in her eyes. After tonight, after this fake relationship act is over, she said slowly, Would you want to see me again? My chest tightened. What do you mean? I asked, even though I already knew. I mean, she said, for real. No story to sell, no pretending, just us. Everything around us kept moving. Waiters carried trays. The band shifted into another song. Someone laughed too loudly at the next table. But in that second, all I could see was her. My boss. My fake date. The woman who had just faced one of her worst memories with her head held high and my hand in hers. I took a breath. What I said next was going to change everything. I would have asked you the same thing, I said. Claire's eyes widened a little. You would have. I have liked every minute we have spent together, I said. The planning, the fake story, the real conversations. I do not want it to end in a parking lot after your ex's wedding. She let out a breath that sounded like relief. So we are on the same page. Quote, I want to see you again, I said for real. Her mouth curved into a real smile then, not the CEO smile. Not the careful social smile she used with old friends and investors. This one reached all the way to her eyes. Then after tonight, she said, "We start over. No script. No pretend timeline. Just you and me." "Deal," I said. The rest of the night felt different. The tension in her shoulders faded. We still played the part of couple for the people around us, but the act had blurred with something true. When the reception finally started to wind down, we slipped outside into the cool night air. String lights glowed above the courtyard. The sounds of music and laughter faded behind us. "Thank you for staying through the vows," she said. As we walked toward the car, "I kept thinking you might tell me you had to leave early." "I told you I would be here." I said I meant it. She stopped under one of the garden lights and turned to face me. "I thought hearing those vows would crush me," she admitted. "I thought watching him promise forever to someone else would prove I had lost." "And did it?" I asked. She shook her head slowly. Listening to him, I realized those words were never meant for me. I was trying to fit into a life that did not match who I am. A breeze moved through the trees, carrying the faint smell of flowers and candle smoke. "You know what I kept thinking while they talked about soulmates and right timing?" she asked. "What?" "I kept thinking about a Friday night in the break room," she said, "when I asked my employee to do something completely insane and he said yes without trying to get anything out of it." "That guy sounds reckless," I said. She laughed and shook her head. "That guy changed my life." On the drive back to her apartment, she leaned her head against the window but did not close her eyes. "What happens now?" I asked. "We go home and sleep," she said. "Tomorrow we rest. Monday we talk to HR. We do this the right way." "You want to tell them?" I asked. "If we are going to date for real, we have to." She said, "I am not risking your career or mine for a secret." It made sense, but the thought still made my stomach twist. Office gossip moved faster than any company email. "You can still change your mind," I said quietly. She turned her head to look at me. "Do you want me to?" "No," I said. "I am just giving you an out." "I do not want out." She said, "I want in. Fully, even if it is messy." When we pulled up in front of her building, she unbuckled her seatbelt slowly, then stopped. "Can I ask you something else?" she said. "Anything." "Do you regret saying yes?" she asked, "to the wedding?" To all of this, I thought of that night in the break room, of the list of names at the cafe, of her hand crushing mine during the vows, of the way her face had softened on the dance floor. "Not for a second," I said. She smiled, then leaned across the console and kissed me. It was not a long kiss, not dramatic, just soft and sure. A promise more than a performance. "Good night," she said when we pulled apart. "We will talk Monday." "Good night, Claire," I said. Monday morning, we both went to HR. We sat in small chairs in a small office and told the HR director we were in a relationship and wanted everything to be above board. Claire was calm and direct. My heart pounded hard enough for both of us. The director listened, took notes, and asked practical questions. When did it start? Did either of us feel pressured? Were there any complaints? We started spending time together a few weeks ago. Claire said I asked him to come with me to a personal event. It grew from there. He is free to walk away at any time. He knows that the director studied us for a moment, then nodded. "As long as you understand the risks," she said, "and as long as no one reports any concern about favoritism or pressure, you are not breaking policy. But if anything changes, we need to know." We signed the forms. We walked out together, both holding copies of the same stapled packet, so I said in the hallway, "I guess this is real now." "This was already real," Claire said. "Now it is just documented. We stayed careful at work for months. No private jokes in meetings. No touching in the office. No leaving together in a way that would feed gossip. We met across town for dinner. We went for long walks after dark. We learned how the other one took their coffee and what kind of day could ruin their mood. Two things changed everything again. First, Claire was promoted. The board made her regional director over several branches. She still worked in the same building, but she was no longer in my direct chain of command. I reported to someone else. It made things cleaner. Second, she stood in front of the whole company at the annual gala and said, "I love you," not into the microphone, not in the speech. After. She had given a talk on leadership, on taking smart risks. I watched her from the crowd, feeling proud and a little stunned. that this brilliant woman went home with me. Later, when the lights were lower and people were scattered in groups with drinks, she found me near the windows. "You were amazing," I said. "You always say that," she replied. "I always mean it," I answered. She was quiet for a second, then said, "There is something I want to say where people can see us together like this." I felt that same tightness in my chest I had felt right before the vows at Trevor's wedding. "Okay," I said. "I love you," she said. The noise of the room dropped away in my head. The words were simple. They still hit me like a wave. "I wanted to say it out here," she went on, "not in secret. I love you as the man who said yes when I asked for help, not as my employee or as someone under me on an org chart. Just you." I pulled her closer and kissed her, not caring who saw. When we broke apart, my answer was easy. "I love you too." I said, "I think I started that night you walked into the break room and told me the truth instead of hiding behind your title." A few people nearby were clearly watching. Some smiled. No one looked shocked. That was when I realized how little their opinions mattered compared to the woman in front of me. A year later, we went back to Morrison Gardens. This time, Claire wore white. The same stone paths. The same stretch of grass. The same arch, though decorated with different flowers. Our families and friends filled the chairs. People from the office sat in one row, whispering and smiling. Marcus stood beside me as my best man. He leaned over and said, "Hard to believe this started in the break room." "Hard to believe it started with someone else's wedding," I said. Music played. Claire stepped into view with her sister at her side. My chest went tight in the best way. The woman walking toward me was not my boss. She was my partner. My home. When it was time for vows, I went first. "Claire," I said, "a long time ago you asked me the strangest question anyone has ever asked me in an office. You asked if I would be your date to your ex's wedding. I said yes because I thought you needed a shield. I did not know I was saying yes to my own future." She laughed softly, eyes bright. "You wanted to prove you were okay," I went on. "But you were more than okay. You were strong and kind and stubborn and brave. I promised to keep standing next to you when things hurt. I promised to tell you the truth, even when it is hard. I promised to choose you on the easy days and the hard ones. I love you. I am so glad I said yes." She wiped at her eyes and shook her head at me like I was impossible. Then she spoke. "I thought I had my life planned out with someone else," she said. "When that ended, I felt broken and ashamed. I walked into a break room and asked a man who worked for me to help me pretend I had moved on. I expected a transaction. Instead, I found the person who really saw me." Her voice trembled once, then steadied. "You did not take my money," she said. "You asked for my honesty. You stood beside me while I listened to vows that used to be meant for me, and you stayed until the very end. You made me feel strong when I felt small. I promise to respect you, to push you when you doubt yourself, to listen when you are tired, and to love the real you, not some perfect image. You are my partner. You are my safest place. I love you." We exchanged rings. The officiant said the words. I kissed my wife. Later, at our reception in the same glass greenhouse where I once watched another couple dance, someone asked how we met. We told the whole story. My CEO asked me to be her date to her ex's wedding. I went. I stayed for the vows. I drove her home. We decided to try something real. That sounds like a movie. One guest said, "It sounds like a risk." Another added. Claire squeezed my hand under the table and leaned close. "It was a risk," she whispered. "The best one I have ever taken." Years from now, when people ask how we started, I always go back to that Friday night, the hum of the vending machine, the cold coffee, the CEO in the doorway saying, "This is going to sound inappropriate. I thought I was just helping my boss survive one painful afternoon." I did not know I was walking into the rest of my life.